on in, sit back and relax. You're listening to the Wealth Tech Today podcast. I'm your host, Craig Iskowitz, founder of Ezra Group Consulting. And this podcast features interviews, news, and analysis on the trends, best practices all around wealth management technology. And this week, we are kicking off a three-part series with my good friend Jennifer Maruca, who is a senior consultant here at Ezra Group, also founder of Platform Value Group. And here is the setup and why we're doing this. What we found through our research and working in the industry for over 20 years, the average wealth management firm is using less than a third of the platform capabilities that they've already paid for. That gap between what firms bought and what they're actually using, which we call the platform value gap, has a number. Could be as much as $100 million in lost value every year. Now, over the next 3 episodes, we're breaking down exactly how that happens. Episode 1, which is this episode, will define the platform value gap and the math behind it. Episode 2 gets into why it persists, the 4 root causes, and the platform value curve. And episode 3 brings it all home with AI, why AI doesn't close this gap, amplifies it, and what that means for firms that haven't done the work yet. So as I mentioned, this is episode 1 in this series. We're talking about the platform value gap, the 3 dimensions that make up the gap, and some main signals that reveal it. So if you're an RIA or broker-dealer running on any wealth tech platform today, this series is your playbook for finding the value you already paid for and getting ahead of what AI does to firms that haven't. Now, let me just take a quick break, talk about my favorite topic, Ezra Group. Here's an uncomfortable number. Most RIAs and broker-dealers are using less than a third of the features of the software they've paid for. That's a lot of waste. And it's not just a training problem. It's millions of dollars in enterprise value sitting untouched inside your tech stack. Now, Ezra Group helps wealth management firms close that gap, starting with a diagnostic baseline on where your platform actually stands, then prioritizing the workflows, data, and advisor adoption work that turns unused capabilities into realized value. We also offer an AI governance audit so your firm can compound with AI instead of amplifying the problems already sitting in your platform. So if you're paying for software capabilities you're not using, you need to run, not walk to our website, ezragroup.com, and click the purple Contact Us button on the homepage to schedule your free consultation today. All right, now my standard housekeeping chores. Please subscribe to the show, yada, yada, yada. Make sure to check out our sponsor, the Invest in Others Charitable Foundation at investinothers.org. And now, let's kick this thing off. All right. I'm excited to introduce my next guest. It is Jennifer Maruca, founder of Platform Value Group and a senior consultant with Ezra Group. Jennifer, it's great to see you.
To see you. Thanks for having me, Craig.
I'm glad that you can make it. I'm glad we can fit it in your schedule. And where are you calling in from? You're not even in this country.
I am not. I'm in Canada this week. So,
excellent.
International podcast today.
Yes. We like Canada. We like to have an international podcast. We're listened to around the world, in fact.
That's very cool.
We've got Canadian listeners. We've got listeners in Europe. We have listeners in Asia, all over the place. Awesome. And what they want to hear about is a topic that we're going to discuss today, and it's wealth management, the technology utilization, and how we can improve and increase that. And we've seen that over many years. Let me just intro this next question. So DocuPace's 2024 industry study has shown that half of advisors' tech stacks go unused. Keats's research, 2025 Advisor Tech, shows the average advisor uses less than 30% of what's available in their software, and the gap isn't getting any better. So what can they do to address this?
Yeah, so you're right, Craig. And the reason I did this paper and started going down this path to understand that is that I kept hearing senior executives talk about this problem without actually talking about this being the problem, right? So try to connect the dots between we're spending millions of dollars and advisors aren't using it. They know it's costing them money. They see the money that they've spent and they don't know what to do to fix this problem. So the other thing that we're seeing now is that AI, it's becoming more of a glaring issue. with AI, since firms that really have capitalized on the getting the most value out of their stack are able to really utilize and leverage AI in a way that firms that haven't are not able to. So basically, I think what firms can do about this problem is first is what does it look like today? So at a firm level, this problem shows up differently and depending on the type of firm. Um, but really to understand and ask some questions about what's going on in your firm's tech stack, right? So do you even know the usage? We'll talk a little bit about the measurement gap here shortly, but there's a big measurement gap. So a lot of firms aren't able to say that Kits's number is really the 30% of of features, only 30% of the features are being utilized. Most firms aren't able to tell you what features within their software are being used and not used. And we work with tech vendors even to start to show some transparency and encourage them to show transparency back to the organization so that they can actually see underneath the login data, what is actually happening. So that's like a huge
Yep.
step. And we'll talk through, some of the questions that you can begin to ask to understand that better.
And one thing we find at Ezra Group when we go into a work with a new client is that, as you mentioned, they don't even know what their utilization is. And when we show them, they're always shocked that the utilization rate of the software that they're spending millions of dollars on is so low.
Yeah, and utilization, honestly, if we're looking at really here, what we're talking about is platform value. So it is unlocking the value that the software should have enabled your organization to realize that it's not. So utilization is a leading indicator, but it's really about the business outcomes that have been enabled through the technology. And there's very few firms that are connecting those dots in a way that they can see, we spent X on this technology and it's produced this outcome, this business outcome and assets and revenue and productivity, right? So that's really the number that we want to get underneath and figure out.
One tool that you created in your many years of experience that was helping firms understand these gaps is itself called the platform value gap. So can you explain what that is and how it is used?
Yeah, I mean, very simply, it is the difference between what you paid and the value that you're receiving. So exactly what I just described, it's really looking at, there's like three components. So some of it is an actual dollar sign or dollar line item on your P&L. And that's really what's the spend that you have been laying out and how much of that's being utilized or not. And those are, again, the metrics versus what the platform is actually available and providing. And then the second one is productivity. So the productivity is more of an opportunity gap in the sense that if there was a technology that was launched with the hopes that it would make an advisor more productive and take one particular task, but the advisors are continuing to do that task the way they've always done it, and they haven't really changed their behavior to align with the software, there is productivity that's left on the table, right? That's a cost that's sort of more of an opportunity cost that could be used to do additional, more profitable tasks, such as talking to clients, getting referrals, getting new clients. And then the third is the growth doesn't speed up alongside with the spend that you're laying out. So you can't, if leadership can't see what the platform is actually doing, you're not able to know if the advisors are growing at the rate that they should be growing at. And a lot of firms, you'll see they treat go live as the finish line. So they spend a lot of time, we've seen this, working with helping people that, implement software. And they go through the tech is set up, the training has been launched, we've gone live, we celebrate, yay, and the project essentially ends. The project team is disbanded and it ends. So what we're talking about here is instead of treating go live as the finish line, it really is the starting line, right? And it's an operating discipline. What we're talking about in terms of extracting value from a platform is more of an operating discipline of an organization, not just a project, right? It's something that is owned at a senior level. It's something that's reviewed and measured and managed managed to and looked at on an ongoing basis.
So this is a common problem that we see, that firms think, well, they bought the software and now they're done. They don't need to do anything else. And one analogy I use with our wealth management clients when they don't understand is when a client signs the contract that they're now going to work with you, do you stop communicating to them? Do you stop explaining to them what your value is? Oh no, we have a whole process. We have campaigns and meetings and reviews. I'm like, you need to do the same thing internally. You have to have the same sort of communication strategy and marketing strategy internally that you have externally to make sure your advisors and your staff understands why you're doing things, why you paid all this money for the software, how it's going to benefit them, and why they need to use it.
That's right.
So, can you walk us through what the platform value gap looks like inside a firm and how it's addressed?
Yeah. And it's partly why it's not, nothing is so obviously jumping out at you that like, oh yeah, we have a platform value gap, because it's more of like what you sense is happening, but aren't actually able to like put your finger on the cost of. So what you'll see is something like a client service, a sales assistant, support staff, client service representative is going in and they're rekeying data in multiple systems, right? So to do one account opening platform, they have to, or one account opening, let's say they're having to enter different information manually in several different platforms. Very common that you see that. You might see an advisor still using spreadsheets because they know they've used it for so long, they can get an answer that they want very quickly. And it's something that they have relied on for many years. You would have management say that they are unsure about how teams are using the platform, like we talked about, because either the data is incomplete or missing, or it's reported differently from system to system. It's hard to really understand what's being used and not. This is another common one. You don't have consistency across the organization in terms of the client experience. Depending on which advisor is talking to them or which team they're working with, they're going to get a very different experience. Because again, that's where there's lack of workflow consistency across the organization. And again, the leadership is reporting on cost. And you don't see the connection between the software cost line item and the actual business strategy or the outcomes that they're intending to drive with that cost, if that makes sense, and being able to connect those dots. So each of those things doesn't look like a huge glaring problem, but together they're creating this operating issue where you're leaving millions, in many cases, millions of dollars on the table and at stake.
When I hear millions of dollars, my ears perk up. I want to know what that is. So there's a couple of numbers I've seen out there and they're all in the many millions, that firms are losing revenue. They're losing hundreds of millions of dollars in AUM they could be gathering. So can you walk through the process, not the process, but how the math and how that works up, and what are the components of this that we can piece together to help wealth management firms grab that number, grab that data back and bring that into their firm?
Yeah, and I'll just start this with the caveat of it's not a line item. So, like you said, you hear millions of dollars, and now the CFO is trying to go to their P&L and find the number in their budget, and that's not where you can find it. So, it is an opportunity cost. There's some real cost, but it is an opportunity cost. So, let me just walk you through the different pieces. And I cite the number of $100 million figure for a mid-market wealth management firm. We're talking mid-market, around 800 advisors in this example, the high end of the mid-market space, and non-wirehouses. So this is again middle market firms. The number I cite is $100 million at a firm level. And so if you take all three pieces, that's about 85 to 130 million a year of value at stake for a firm in that size range. The first piece is the unrealized technology. So if we look at just software spend in the US alone, so think about what an advisor is actually using. It's about $1 billion a year. And advisors using half of that or two, sorry, the spend is about 2 billion. The unrealized or unused or underused piece of that is actually about $1 billion. And it's actually the smallest in this equation here, but it's the most visible piece of the equation that you can see. It's what the tech spend is not producing in return, essentially. Piece two is the recoverable advisor capacity. So we talked about this a little bit already, but this is really the biggest piece. KPMG cites Cerulean and shows that advisors are spending only about less than 60% of their time on client-facing work. And McKinsey has talked about being able to recover 10 to 20% of advisor capacity through the use of technology. So when you're looking at an 800 advisor firm and you multiply that against typical advisor revenue on an annual basis, you're looking at tens of millions of dollars in productivity that right now is going to tasks like administrative tasks, reconciling information between systems before a client meeting, right? My portfolio performance tools say one thing, the custodian data says another, right? Those types of activities are taking away from time that could be increasing revenue and working with clients and working on growing their client base. And then piece three of the equation is deferred growth. So Schwab did a 2025 RIA benchmarking study, and they found that firms, and I'm going to say integrated firms, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means, but that integrated firms grew at 37% faster than AUM. AUM grew 37% faster than firms that are still doing manual workflows. So think about integration as just because the systems are integrated, that's not even the whole story. Integrated systems allow you to do a workflow from start to finish more efficiently. Getting advisors and teams to use the workflow, use the system workflows to do that work is part of the other piece, right? So it is aligning work with what the system's workflows are, rather than just tacking on top technology without realigning workflows to align with the efficiencies that technology is technically replacing. So that's a big piece of it too. But those are the three items. And the right way to hear this is that this is enterprise value that the firm is leaving on the table. It's what the platform should be producing that it isn't. So that number, again, huge number, could be in the hundreds of millions of dollars for a mid-market firm with approximately 800 advisors. Just going to say that number again.
Say it again. Say it again and again until people get through.
That's right. It's big.
Right.
It's a big
So
number.
out of that, so you're framing this, the platform value gap, across three dimensions:
Okay.
technology, advisor capacity, and growth. So how do those interact and affect each other when you are addressing this gap?
How do they interact and affect each other? I mean,
Mhm.
so when you have this gap, that's how it's going to show up in the organization. That's where the value is that's where the value is being lost, or where you have the biggest opportunities. I would say it that way. You have a big advisor base. The time recovery is real. For smaller firms, even deferred growth, it matters a lot because you're leaving a lot of new money potentially on the table. I usually start with capacity. That's the easiest thing to make visible inside the firm. And once you get advisors realizing that their capacity is increasing and that you're reducing the administrative load of manual workflows and data reconciliation across systems and rekeying or support staff having to rekey items. When advisors start seeing that capacity, then leadership begins to wake up to it. So the one of the easiest things that a firm can do is to really look at the workflows that exist today in an organization and document what are the workflows that are actually being used versus what is the straight through path that the system may create for any particular task or work that they're doing.
That's something we do with a lot of firms is document their workflows. And even firms we've seen in the business 10 or more years are lacking this. They don't have documented workflows, and they wonder why everything's being done differently why clients are getting very different experiences from the same.
We'll talk about this in one of our future episodes, the third episode of the series, about AI, but that's a huge piece right now in that AI will leverage, as we know, we're working with firms on implementing AI as well, but AI will enhance whatever exists. So if
Mm,
you have disconnected workflows, there's no way you can automate. You can't really leverage AI to do what AI can do
mm,
when these problems exist within the tech stack. So not only is platform value gap an important thing on its own, it basically is your prescription for whether you can get leverage out of AI or not also, right? So
mm.
that's a fundamental thing, Craig, and I know we'll talk a
Right.
little bit more about that in a future episode, but I did want to just circle back to that.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
So, talking about getting more detail on the platform value gap, how
Mhm.
is it measured? Is it a 1 to 10, a 1 to 100, an ABC?
I mean, it's measured when we go into an organization and we help them to identify, okay, what is the opportunity? What is the gap that you're existing today? We look at the platform across a number of different dimensions. So we do a diagnostic, so to say,
Mm,
so that you can see where you are, where you sit. So I will say one of um, the items that we've created a tool that helps firms to see this is the platform value curve. So
mm,
we will do a diagnostic on a number of factors to help the firm realize where they sit on the platform value curve from launch to full optimization and compounding value, right? So where you start versus what the opportunity is and where you sit along that, and then looking underneath at some of those factors. So um, most firms are kind of in the middle, right? They've made the investment, they went live, they trained the advisors, they built dashboards, but there's still this gap. So the framework for this diagnostic basically shows you where you sit between, I called it stalled, where you had a launch, problems are still exist that were there day one. So that they launched it, but they never really got anything in momentum going or value. And then the firms that have really been able to optimize and change how they're operating have been able to create the most leverage out of the platform and are making they have discipline on what technology they have, how it's working, how it's connected to the business results. So the firms that are still treating a new tool as the answer, I mean, that was part of what created this problem, Craig, in the last decade. We've seen the democratization of wealth
mm,
tech, where
mm,
every firm could essentially go buy pieces of a tech stack to compete with a wirehouse. So any size firm could have all the tools at their
mm,
fingertips. But in doing so, each of these tools made a lot of sense in and of themselves, where you had, you were trying to solve a particular problem, and then that tool could solve a problem. But now you have this tech stack that is disconnected and has created sort of this issue. So in most cases, when we're talking to an organization, we do the diagnostic, we go through where the biggest issues might be. The answer is never you need more technology,
mm.
right? It's that another tool is not going to solve this problem. AI is not going to solve this problem, right? So
It could
if
make it
any
worse.
you can it could it if you have this problem, it will make it worse without focusing on it. That's right.
Are there any signals? You mentioned the usage curve. Are
Yes.
there any other signals that wealth management firms would get out of the platform value gap to help them address like which way they should be going?
Yeah. So one of and if when I say this, it's going to be pretty telling. So what I would say that the biggest signal you could look at this week to know is to pull a report on advanced feature use by advisor segment. And it's kind of a trick task. It's not a
Mm.
trick question, trick
A trick
task.
task.
Trick task because so many organizations that we work with are not able to give you that data at a level of featured use. So that's usually one of the most telling things. And if you can get that data, it will tell you the truth the fastest. It's which of your advisors are using what? Are your senior advisors? Are your newer advisors, are they using the workflow automation, analytics, the integrations you've already put in place and paid for? Not whether they're logging in. Again, it's the more advanced layer. And if the usage is kind of flat, then you have a platform value gap. If you have senior users that are bypassing the system and the platform and working out of spreadsheets, you have a gap. If you're mid-tier advisors, by the way, that is the biggest opportunity, and that's the biggest productivity opportunity is in the middle, and that's often the segment of advisors that gets the least attention. But if they are using the platform the least, you have a value gap. So the signal is sitting in your data in some way, shape, or form. And if it's not, you need to be able to see that data, or you'll never be able to connect the dots to an actual business outcome, right? You'll never be able to know if you're just tracking logins and license counts, right? It's tracking, that tracks what you spent, right? The logins, the license counts, things like that. It's not tracking what it's producing, what the technology is producing. So the shift is in what you're asking out of the reports that you're able to get. And if you need help with reports, that's something, again, that we have done, where we help people with tools to get data out of the platform. That's actually going to help them from a business strategy perspective.
Absolutely. We can definitely do that. But we are running out of time. So we've got a couple more episodes that are in this series. So this is just episode 1 of 4. So let's tease it for episode 2. So give me a couple things we're going to be talking about next time.
Yeah. So next episode, we're going to talk more about why this gap doesn't close on its own. There's basically some reasons that the gap persists, and they're not really what leadership teams think. It's really not that advisors don't want to use the platform. It's not even that advisors resist change. And it's not that we picked the wrong vendor or we picked the wrong technology. It's deeper than that. And that's what we're all going to walk through. I talked a little bit about the platform value curve, but we're going to talk more about that. We're going to dive into that, talk about where firms sit on the platform between we bought it and it's compounding our growth. And most firms aren't really where they think they are. So we're going to get into that more detail. And I think I already mentioned on the next one after that, we'll be diving more into AI as it relates to the platform value gap.
That's excellent. Jennifer, it's great to see you. Can't wait to record the next couple episodes. This was fun.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's Craig again. Here are my top 3 takeaways from this episode. Number 1. Most wealth management firms didn't buy too little technology. They stopped doing the work the moment they went live, which is exactly when the real value capture work was supposed to start. Number 2, the most expensive underuse isn't at the bottom of the tech stack, it's the top shelf tools, automation, analytics, integrations, where usage falls off the hardest, even though they produce the most value if they were used. And number 3, pull one report this week, advanced feature usage by advisor segment, if you have it. If your senior advisors are working out of spreadsheets or your mid-tier group is using the platform the least, you've got a platform value gap. All right. Congratulations. You reached the end of another episode of the Wealth Tech Today podcast. Thanks for listening. But before you go, please head to our website, ezragroup.com, and scroll to the bottom of the homepage and sign up for our newsletter. Once a month, you'll receive an email chock full of wealth management goodness, news, information, and updates. You will not be disappointed. Thanks again for listening, and talk to you all again next time.